very good. There was about 15 or so ums and ahs and erms, so crutch sounds. I listened very carefully but couldn't pick up on many of the traditional crutch words such as basically and totally. I'd never, when I'm giving feedback as the art counselor, I don't like to single people out and say so-and-so did 5 ums and so-and-so scratched the nose 3 times. But in general terms, I would like to commend in particular the icebreaker speeches. There was virtually no crutch words, and in particular, Nick, there was none at all in your speech, so well done. And I would like to commend the table topic speakers. You would normally expect quite a few ums and ahs with table topics with new speakers and guests who haven't been before, and there was very few, so it was a very high standard again. So I'd like to commend everyone for that. Thank you, Mr. Tosman.
Thank you for your report, Julian. It's been an evening of rich language. I've very much enjoyed listening to the speeches this evening. We've heard some lovely phrases and expressions that I'd just like to point out for you. First prepared speaker was Ed, who found myself in Washington, D.C. I don't know how you find yourself in Washington, D.C. Get there by accident. I thought that was lovely. A great stature in our field. I like that expression, talking about the people that you were there to see. Words like scourge and imposter, unremarkable, disproportionate. These were lovely words, well expressed. Illuminating prose and as the ice began to melt. What a nice image of how to get your flow of your speaking going. The ice begins to melt. I thought it was beautifully done. Ed, with a couple of speech evaluations and instructions this evening, you mentioned a blossoming speaking career, which I thought was a nice expression. To be incredibly illuminating, the alliteration was very poetic. And a new currency, 1,000 kudos points. We've never had this before. He doesn't give them out often, so Nick, you're in good company here with those kudos points. Take them and run. Enjoy. Nick, your speech. To begin a speech, I have a confession to make. What a great hook, a line to bring us in. I have a confession to make. I was scared at this point. I didn't know what you were about to reveal. I'm going to plug my ears, but no, it was good. You had an ongoing quest, and you had a natural trade-off. These were nice phrases. And a half-decent bunch of A-levels, which is a hell of a lot more than I got, so congratulations to you, well done. Tom, wrested victory out of the jaws of defeat. Now, that's personification at its finest. I thought that was wonderful. You had a nice rule of 3 there, calloused, cynical and arrogant. That was a nice rule of 3 as well. You mentioned words like vindictive and a polarity. A nice winter phrase, but demonstrating the contrast between the two ends of the opinion spectrum, which that was nice as well. Rena, you had a nice rule of 3 as well in yours. Love, care and attention, talking about being spoiled, but the rhythm of it was nicely delivered. You had a unique bond with your sisters, and I think about chemical bonds and the strength of those. Very nice imagery, the bond of your relationship with your sisters. And a way to get people into marathon running, an absolute killer. Lovely phrase, but I don't think anyone's going to take up marathon running after that one. Teresa, you talked about a step change. This was nice, so a step and a change. I thought it was a lovely contrast that you painted. And you said something that you're knowledgeable about and something that you're passionate about. And the repetition there was nicely done as well. Megan, you talked about Ed being calm, collected and confident. Again, nice alliteration. Again, the power of 3. Very easy on the ear and a good rhythm to these expressions, which was excellent. I think that's all for the prepared speeches. And then, as Tom mentioned, this polarity in the table topic was fascinating to me. So we had these contrasting stories. Gary, I loved yours about the being in the hut and the imagery of the mussels and the otters and the boat. Beautifully set scene there. And then we had the skiing in Austria, which again created a nice image, and some from the Caribbean. And all these different world locations brought different pictures. And then we had these contrasting stories from Jacqueline about falling over and being on the floor, and the grip of the soles of the shoes, where Catherine was probably walking past taking the picture of Jacqueline on the floor as she went. But it was a wonderful set of stories that created these contrasting images, which I just thoroughly enjoyed. But I think the line that I favoured most in the table topics and has to be repeated, damn it, I trusted you, Mother Nature, and you failed me. Take that home with you and use that this week at some point. Very well delivered. Some wonderful language this evening, and we've been treated very well. Always endeavour to make sure that when you're speaking, you try to access those types of language and that vocabulary. It makes you appear more credible, gives you more authority in your speaking, so very well done. That's me done as grammarian, but we now move on to the business of the general evaluation. Kamalika will come and will give feedback the rest of the meeting on anybody that's taken a role that hasn't received feedback, I will then present the awards and the meeting will be over. But for your evaluation, please welcome Kamalika to the stage.
As Simon said, my role today is to evaluate anyone who hasn't been evaluated and generally comment on the running of the meeting. I'll start with the Sergeant at Arms, Ed. I thought you had a very confident style and you had lovely humor as well incorporated within those like 1 minute of introducing the meeting. You made sure that we had a prompt start, both at the start and after the break. Just a couple of points to note. Probably have more check before the meeting that there are enough pens to offer in case people need pens. The other thing was at the back, me and the general evaluator and the timekeeper didn't have voting slips, and it would be nice to have voting slips as well. We did get them, but it would be nice to have that. I also want to commend our committee sergeant at arms, Ed K, because as soon as I entered the meeting room in like half an hour before the meeting, it was all set. But just one thing to note is probably not have the chair to block that side of the table and make room for easy passage. I'll next move on to our Toastmaster for the day, Simon Day. Simon, I tried really hard throughout the meeting and I could not find, unfortunately, anything to comment on to improve. You started by welcoming the guests, immediately made them feel very welcome. You explained the agenda really well, and then explained the roles and the aim of the roles. And it was very good to see a balance between the theme you chose. It was very good to see you strike the balance between welcoming the newcomers, because you said it was lovely to see the unfamiliar faces more than the familiar ones. And then you also said how perseverance and keeping on at something is really important. That showed by your choice of theme, which was, sorry, I don't have it here. The long game, yes. Then I'll move on to Stefanos, who was the timekeeper. He was impeccable, sitting next to me. He did a really good job and a very highly technical, aged job of keeping time, because every time he had to keep a minute or something, there would be those little beeps, and everyone would know that the time has ended. I thought that worked very well. And I also noted that he was very good with showing the cards, and probably the speakers were very aware of the card change. I didn't find any loopholes in whatever you did, and it's a hard job because you are basically multitasking, checking the time as well as enjoying the speeches. Grammar, our counter, Julian. It was really attentive. It was very encouraging because you pointed out, you gave useful feedback without really making anyone feel bad about using too much of us. What I really liked about your introduction was that you actually classified the R's instead of just saying these are crutch words. You explained a little bit about non-verbal ones and adverbs and the general R's and ums. You also gave us strategies as to how we can maybe use pauses instead of the non-verbal ones. So that was really good. And you used the word of the day in your end of the meeting report, which was great because that was at the end, and again, it was good. Simon Day again, as a grammarian. It was really a good choice of words because it suited very well with the theme. I did find one point to improve on, which was probably you could have reminded the word again after the start of the interval, because in the second half, I thought I didn't hear the word as much as I heard in the first half. Table topic master, Megan. In your introduction, I thought it was really honest and empowering, and I'll see why I use those words. It was honest because you said clearly that speaking up here, impromptu, was daunting, and then you empowered people by really encouraging them to come up, because you clearly said that you get a lot out of it. And I thought that was a very good introduction to the table topic. Choice of topic, very, very relevant, and we got to know a lot about people's feelings at the moment. And you phrased your questions very clearly, which is, again, a really good thing when you are coming up. You don't want to be caught in with, like unclear questions or anything. So that was really good. I'll now move on to the evaluators. I'll start with Megan again. Your evaluation of Ed was really friendly. You had a lot of qualities of a good evaluator. Like, I think the boxes that you should tick as an evaluator. For example, you had a very friendly tone, as I mentioned, and you gave very clear points of improvement. It was very specific. You were very encouraging, and even at the start, when you were introducing Ed, you actually told the audience what icebreaker was and how difficult it is. It's probably the biggest challenge you face in your Toastmaster journey to, for the first time, come up here and talk about yourself. So you made that you made this a very comfortable space for Ed to then come and say what he had to say. Just one point I noted, and I would say maybe not make it so much as when you're giving your evaluation, not make it so much, I'm doing it now, as a one-to-one conversation, because I noticed you didn't look towards the other part of the room as much as you looked at Ed, and it was a bit just meant for Ed, whereas it should be meant for everyone. Teresa, I thought you picked up really some subtle changes in Rina's speech, yeah. So you went through the speech chronologically, and you highlighted Rina's, like the journey that she described through her speech. And what I liked about your evaluation, it was very honest and constructive, and I thought you struck a great balance, because you gave her clear recommendations, and you also told those points in a very constructive way. But maybe end on a slightly more positive tone, if you can. I'm sure you can, but like, just a minor thing for you, I know. The next evaluator is Ed for your first evaluation of Nick. I thought you had a lot of encouraging words to say for Nick, and given that it was his first speech, I thought it was lovely how many kudos currency you gave him, and it was totally well deserved, Nick. So that was really good. And one thing I particularly liked about Ed's evaluation is that you categorized the points of improvement. So he said that I have one minor improvement for Nick and another bigger challenge to take up if you want to. And I thought for a beginner, it's really good to know where you stand and what's an easy thing to achieve and what's probably going to take some more time. It's good to have that perspective. And then Ed again for his evaluation of Tom. Now, evaluating Tom is not easy. And I like the fact that Ed was very clear about his compliments and very structured. And he actually managed also to give Tom recommendation and explain it. He demonstrated very well what he meant when he recommended Tom about the pitch. And it's really good for advanced speakers to have this sort of recommendation, I believe, because yeah, everyone is here to find ways to improve. And next I'll move on to Tom as an evaluator, table topic evaluator. I thought it was quite deep and personal. You not only spoke to the people, to the table topic participants about their speech, but also their natural style. And if you are a beginner, if you're a first-time guest especially, then it's good to know a little bit about yourself, what the other person's perspective is of you. So I think that is really quality feedback you were giving to each and every participant, and that was wonderful. And again, you recapitulated the key message of every talk, which would obviously had helped the voting in the end. And I really like that. You didn't say the title or the speaker's name. I mean, you did say that, but not in a very obvious way. What I really liked is you took like little key messages or little key words or phrases they used to kind of remind us about the story that they shared with us over here. And I know you didn't get distracted by the phone ring that happened during this during your evaluation. That was also commendable, because you don't get much time to prepare as a table topic evaluator. And finally, you didn't finish in time, but I think you were evaluating a lot of speakers, firstly, and secondly, I would much, as a table topic participant myself, I would much rather have that quality feedback than my evaluator to be in time. That's all from General Evaluator. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Kamalika. Again, that's a very challenging role because you have to listen to the whole meeting and take account of every detail. So thank you for the diligence that's gone into that role. Our club president, Paul, is otherwise engaged this evening, so it falls to myself as Vice President of Education to present the awards, which I love. I was president last year and I love this part of every meeting. So it's good to celebrate the achievements of our guests and our members. So we'll do that now and then we'll close the meeting. We give a first timer ribbon to anybody who speaks at our club as a guest for the very first time. We'd like to present these ribbons this evening to people who've done that. Now I've got a list of people that I think have spoken here for the first time. I obviously wasn't here last meeting, so if I'm incorrect, please just correct me. And we'll make sure we get them to the right people. Gary, was this your first time speaking with us? No?
Second time.
Thank you for being honest, appreciate that. Bilal, what about you?
Second time.
Second, thank you again. Jacqueline, your first time speaking here. Please come and get a first time ribbon. Ghislaine, first time. Congratulations. And Shaida, first time. Congratulations. We recognise that in giving a first speech on the Toastmasters journey can be challenging, but 3 individuals this evening have done just that, and we commend them for the effort that they've put into those speeches and for taking that huge first step, which we hope will very soon be followed by a second. We'd like to give icebreaker commendation ribbons to each of the prepared speakers this evening. So first, Ed Cook. Nick. And Rena. Best evaluator this evening, Ed. The award for best table topic this evening, as voted by you, Bilal.
Hey.
And for best speaker this evening, Nick. Thank you all for coming. Because this is a 5th Thursday, our next meeting of Leeds City Toastmasters will be Thursday of next week, so Thursday the 6th of February. As a reminder, there are other clubs in Leeds to visit. Should you require any of those details, please see me afterwards. We would encourage you please to hand any slips to speakers, sign up for the email list if you haven't already. Any unused ballot slips can be returned to the table at the back. Any rubbish in the bin, please, on your way out. Would appreciate you helping us keep the room tidy. Thank you for coming. Drive safe. We hope to see you next Thursday. Good night.